I really believe that what's happening to us was all about taking God or the Creator away and lying that we're on a ball when we live in an enclosed, flat realm. Taking your freedom away by pretending reality is something completely different. I just feel that I had to make this video. It's all about the vacuum of space. And when you see this, you're going to realise there is no vacuum of space. It is absolutely impossible. You're either in a vacuum or you're not. But first of all, this part of the video is just to show you, we probably all know this, but you know, these are for your, just in case people haven't even thought about these things. So this is about what a vacuum would do to a human body. This is what would happen to you if you went into the vacuum of space. This is what would happen to the space station. This is what would happen to everything. This is a vacuum. Do you notice this isn't a vacuum? This is a vacuum. This is a contained unit. It is something completely different. You can't just go from this to that, this to that. It is absolutely impossible. You're either in that or you're not. That is a contained unit. So please explain to me how we get from here on Earth into that, into something just like that. How does a spaceship fly, or a rocket, or whatever it is, a glider, because that's what, in the end, when the boosters come off, it's a glider. How do gliders, right, fire up or be able to use trajectory things on them and get into that? How do we get from this into that? We'd have to break into that, and then it wouldn't be a vacuum anymore. How do we get from that to that? People, please, you have to really think about it. There is no vacuum of space. They are lying to you. They are lying to you. Now, this next experiment is working in a vacuum. This is a guy showing you what happens to items in a vacuum again. So I'll just play it.
And Christian do not have a vacuum pump at home.
No, we don't.
You have a vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
You know how that works?
Yeah.
Fan in there sucks up the air and it takes the dirt along at the same time. Well, this is a vacuum pump that works on somewhat the same principle. Except this time, we're going to suck the air out of this tube. And that tube ends up here in a plate, and there's a little hole there, see? So we're going to, that's where the air is coming out of. And if we put this thing called a bell jar over the top, we're going to pump the air out from inside there. So turn on the switch and watch what happens to the dial. That'll tell you what it's at 0 now?
Yep.
Okay, turn it on.
10, 15, 20.
So now that tells us that the pressure is that much lower inside. Now turn it back on and watch the dial again. Or turn it off.
That's only at 0.
Okay, so we just pump the air out.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do a series of sort of fun experiments that are fun when you've got a vacuum pump. See, I have a balloon here with a little piece of tape on it.
Yeah.
Why is the balloon the size it is?
Because you blow air into it.
Well, okay, but why isn't it bigger?
Because it didn't.
Well, that didn't blow enough air in, right? Okay, well, actually there are 3 different kinds of pressures involved with the balloon. One, the air that you blow in.
Yeah.
Then the stretchiness of the balloon itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is the outside air pressure pushing on the balloon.
Oh.
Right?
That's out here?
Yeah, the air that's all around here like this, called atmospheric pressure. Now, your hand is smaller than mine, so I'd like you to take the balloon and stick it to the side of the bell jar up real high.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what will happen when you turn on the vacuum pump and pump away the air from around the outside of the balloon?
Will it get bigger?
You think so?
Yeah.
All right, try it. You can see what's happening to the vacuum here, and look what's happening to
And
the
this
balloon.
is what would happen to anything that went
Like
into
wanted
a
to take it to the
vacuum.
side so it wouldn't get in the way of the hole, but it's obviously still working.
Look
right?
at it.
Yeah.
What would
No,
a
they're
spacesuit
not.
do?
They're covered
It
the
wouldn't be
hole in
able
the
to
balloon.
cope
I
with
want
that.
the hole in the plate, so turn it on. See, the air was coming in, actually blowing the balloon.
Yeah.
Now,
That's marshmallow.
you do? Oh, good. Then you recognize what those are immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I have one, by the way. But before you eat it, pull it in half and take a look at the inside.
They're little holes.
Yes, see, that's sort of a foam made out of sugar, and there are little tiny holes. What's in the holes?
Air.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you suspect what we're going to do with them? What happened when we put the balloon in? We took the pressure around from the outside of this.
It got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, what should happen to the marshmallows?
They'll get bigger.
Well, let's try it. Here's a dish.
Can we eat this?
Help
So why
yourself.
does everybody else think that this wouldn't happen to the space station
You
and an
can see they're full of little
astronaut?
tiny holes and a foam-like thing. Go ahead, turn on the pump. Let's see what happens.
Oh no.
That look weird. Have you ever seen an exploding marshmallow?
No.
Now, they'll only go so far because then we'll start to break them open. See, there they go. Now, quick, turn it off. And now you have collapsed marshmallows.
It proves.
Yeah. Anyway, you can have a lot of fun with the vacuum pump, can't you?
Yeah.
Underwater, the safety divers meet them and carefully remove them from the platform. Each astronaut is carefully weighted to be precisely neutrally buoyant. Hey, they don't call it the Neutral Buoyancy Lab for nothing. Once weighted properly, the astronauts hover in the water as if floating in the weightlessness of space. Since fins don't work in space, the astronauts don't get to wear them here. They must be moved from task to task by the divers. The divers are also responsible for keeping a careful eye on everything happening. Each astronaut has 4 divers assigned to him or her. 2 are safety divers. Another has a camera with a cable going to the control room. And there are more cameras mounted all over the inside of the pool, too. In the test director room overlooking the pool, 21 monitors keep the staff informed of everything that happens below. They oversee the safety of the operation. If anything were to go wrong, the divers can get the astronaut to the surface in only seconds. In the test conductor room, another team is conducting the training run. The test conductor and team speak directly to the astronauts through the communications gear in their helmets. But powerful underwater speakers allow the divers to hear everything that's being said, even if they can't talk back.
Go ahead and swim EV1 over to Z1 to check out EV2's APFR ingressing.
The point of all this effort is to provide a learning environment for astronauts where they can practice tasks over and over in simulated zero gravity before they're required to do it by themselves in space. Tasks that are easy on land become much harder in zero gravity, and harder still while wearing a spacesuit that has to be able to protect an astronaut from the vacuum of space.
A vacuum is something completely different. A vacuum is not water. A vacuum is something which crushes you, boils you, everything else like that. So how can they simulate it in water? Water is nothing like the vacuum of space.
Whoa, cool.
Did you notice, when the balloon was put in a vacuum chamber and the air was sucked out, the air inside the balloon expanded greatly, causing the balloon to double in size? Did you also notice how smooth and round it become? This happens due to the vacuum in space creates zero pressure. It causes the gases and processes inside the balloon to expand. So, can someone please explain to me why in all of the photos of astronauts on the moon, or in space, none of them who are all wearing simple fabric suits clearly show no signs of the ballooning that we saw in the experiment shown at the beginning of this clip? I have read that there are many layers when constructing these space suits, including non-expanding fabric layers that stop the suits from ballooning out. Even so, the air underneath the non-expanding layer will still try to expand and surely cause a high-pressure area, just like pumping up a car tire. Has anyone noticed that when you pump up a tire, it becomes almost solid, but astronauts seem able to move about quite freely, and have never complained about their ears popping like you get when flying in a jet across the sky. Let's have a look now at the layers of a NASA space suit.
And I'm here at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab in Houston, Texas. This is where NASA trains astronauts before they can go to space. I'm here with Terry Dunn, you're the Training Operations Manager. And Terry, we're in front of a spacesuit.
Right. This is the Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or EMU as we call it. And it's the spacesuit that astronauts wear for spacewalks, either the space shuttle back in those days or the space station now.
And so this has been used, this is the design that's been used for decades.
Right. It's essentially unchanged for the past 40 years.
Now, we've seen what the spacesuit kind of looks like, in photos and videos, but we don't really know what goes underneath and how an astronaut actually puts on the suit. Can you show us the different components of a spacesuit and all the various different accessories that they put on?
Well, sure. This is really just the outer layer, and it starts with a few things that we have over here. Now, on this table, we have the components that go inside of the suit, starting with the diaper.
Underwear in space, but it's a diaper.
Right, and it's big enough for an adult, but it's the same purpose. And ideally, you're not going to have to use it, but in reality, you're going to be in that suit about 6 hours. So. And
this is only worn when you're going to wear a spacesuit.
Right, and
not when you're just floating around the ISS. Up to them.
Right, personal preference, I suppose. But when you got to go, you got to go. Now, over the diaper, you're going to have basically off-the-shelf cotton long johns.
All right.
So
cotton's fine?
Right, and the idea is that it's going to wick away any sweat that you have in there so that your body doesn't get slippery, and you're not going to puddle sweat at the bottom of the suit. So you would have the pants and then also a long-sleeve shirt that would go over that.
Sounds good. Sounds like everything I could buy at a supermarket right now.
Right, so far you're good.
Yeah.
You're ready to go into space. Next, you're going to get derailed a little bit. This is the liquid cooled ventilation garment. And basically it's a jumpsuit with very stretchy material, but woven in through that material are tubes that run cold water. So by varying the flow rate of that cold water, you can manage your body temperature. You can imagine with all this stuff underneath and then all the stuff you're going to put on the outside, you get hot very quickly, especially if you're working outside.
And so it's just through these tubes here, and it's designed so those are the points where heat can be released more effectively.
Right, it's distributed well enough that you don't feel point cooling. It's basically an overall effect.
Okay.
And then we've got the communication cap, and this is really kind of a NASA trademark. This is the Snoopy cap that you've read about forever. And so, and if you'd like, you may try it on.
I will. Wow, all right, so this plugs in then?
This will plug into a port on the suit, and then you've got electrical power, and there's a radio built in that lets you talk to the guys back inside the space station and indirectly back down to Mission Control. We would also have a few other ancillary items that are kind of at the discretion of the astronaut. They'll be wearing cotton gloves that go underneath the regular gloves. And again, it's the same idea as the undergarments. You're just going to want to wick away the sweat underneath. And then we also have a variety of pads and shields that help limit any contact with the metal inside the suit so you don't get soft spots and bruising while you're in there. And this would be an example of those.
All right, and then after they put all this on, they put on the EMU.
Right, the outer part of the suit.
All right, let's go check that out. Since we're here at the NBL and these suits are used for training purposes, how does this suit differ than what the astronauts actually wear in the ISS?
Well, if you take away the life support system, which is the backpack-looking thing up here, there's really no difference. In fact, a lot of the hardware that we use here for training is hardware that's flown in space before.
Been in space and repurposed as training.
Right. I like to think it's been upgraded for training, but they call it downgrading for training.
An astronaut would have to disassemble it from it hanging on a wall before putting it on.
Right. They would want to break it down into the same components like we have here.
And what do they put on first?
The first thing you're going to do is put on the lower torso assembly, which to you and me would be a pair of pants with the shoes built in. They call it spacewalking, but you don't use your legs a whole lot when you're spacewalking. So they would put this on, and it gets pulled up to about their waist. And once they've got that, they're going to waddle underneath this. Like in space, it's not waddling. They're going to float underneath here, and then squat through the bottom of this upper torso assembly, which is rigidly mounted to the inside of the space station, and then get their arms up through here, and their head will pop out of the top. And then at that point, they're in the suit.
And this is a very rigid suit. Like, there's not a lot of mobility in here.
Right. The upper part, they call it the hard upper torso for a reason. It's really a hard shell, and despite the obvious comfort level of that, there's a reason for it. And you've got to have all these different things. The life support system, the controls for the suit, your tools, all have to be rigidly mounted. So you need that hard shell to be able to do that.
What are the materials that are used for the EMU? It's many different materials and layers, I imagine.
Right, there's a few different composites that I can't explain all the details of.
State secrets.
Right, the different composites.
The more I look into space travel, the International Space Station, and the Apollo missions, the less I am convinced that even space exists. With a huge amount of evidence that is shown on YouTube every week, it makes you wonder what NASA are really up to. With this planned future moon mission that Donald Trump is requesting NASA do, I think everyone will be watching very close at every stage of the mission. So if NASA did fake the moon landings, they had better do a much more convincing movie of the future one coming up. And let me just say one thing. When NASA starts making excuses and delays to this new moon mission, think about one thing. Can they really go? Have they actually been there before? And are they delaying the mission because the fake movie they are making of it is not quite up to scratch? Once 2020 has come and gone, and NASA still haven't set foot on the moon, then you can all say that Mr. Sandpit 123 was right. It's all fake.
To space, and it does that by pumping out the 30 tons of air in this chamber until there are about 2 grams left.
So, Brian enlightening us here and telling us that there's 30 tons of air in that chamber. Now, that 30 tons, according to Brian at modern day physics, is actually pushing on him from every direction. And it's the equivalent of about 14.7 pounds per square inch of pressure, or over the whole body, that's roughly the amount of pressure on air pushing down on you of a small car. So that air would instantly crush us, were it not for one thing. We actually impart motion, so when we move, what apparently is happening, according to modern day physics, is the huge weight of air pushes against another huge weight of air, and that is the only way we're able to move. I'm saying with 100% certainty it is ourselves that are able to displace the air very easily, and it is not the air that allows our movement. We can move through the air with great ease, but the problem is gravity is supposed to be pushing everything to the ground, and yet we don't feel any air being pushed to the ground above us. And one of the explanations given to this is because we have this enormous amount of force pushing in all directions, and you would be crushed instantaneously like a gnat if it wasn't for this magical force in the air pushing back, which of course I don't believe. I'm contrary to that idea because it goes against everything in common sense. If you're in some sort of storm and you can see that the winds are blowing, the trees are leaning over, things are flying past you, litter, rubble, and yet we're supposed to believe that at the same time that mass of air that we can so clearly see observing in a completely different way is at the same time supposed to be pushing on us from every direction equally. It makes absolutely no sense, and it only takes a few moments and common sense to say that's a complete lie, but it's a necessary lie for their fiction. So, what we are told is that we have a combined weight of air, the combined weight of the elements in the air, pushing on us in all directions. We cannot actually move in the face of this air. All we can do is, quote unquote, impart motion. So I can only rely on a huge mass of air to act as a counterforce to the air I'm pushing against. Problem being, everything we observe, we can see how the weight of the air is acting, and therefore we can know it is not acting in the way we are told.
It's got an eccentric construction, which is part of its history. It was built in the 1960s as a nuclear test facility to test nuclear propulsion systems, And that meant that they built it out of aluminium to make the radiation easier to deal with. Aluminium is not the best thing, the strongest material to build a vacuum chamber out of. So they built an outer concrete skin, which is part radiation shielding and part an external pressure vessel, so that this thing can take the force that's present on the outside when it's pumped out to the conditions of outer space. Galileo's experiment was simple. He took a heavy object and a light one and dropped them at the same time to see which fell fastest. Now in this case, the feathers fell to the ground at a slower rate than the bowling ball because of air resistance. So in order to see the true nature of gravity, we have to remove the air. It takes 3 hours to pump out the 800,000 cubic feet of air from the chamber. Okay, we dropped 2 millitorr in the last 30 minutes. But once it's complete, there's a near perfect vacuum inside.
6104 manual, 10% open. Station 1, go for drop. PCV 30-1, pressure set point at 240 psi. We are go for drop.
10, 9, 5, 4, cameras on, 2, 1, release. Look at that. They came down exactly the same. Wow. Look. That's right there. Look at how they hit right there. Exactly. Back on the side. Exactly the same.
Feathers don't move, nothing.
Look at that. That's just brilliant. Isaac Newton would say that the ball and the feather fall because there's a force pulling them down. Gravity. But Einstein imagined the scene very differently. The happiest thought of his life was this. The reason the bowling ball and the feather fall together is because they're not falling. They're standing still. There is no force acting on them at all.
Right, I've got an idea, okay, but it does require, right, it's a theory of mine, if I'm honest, but it does require that we think generally, right? Now, when I say that, I do mean relatively as well. So let me ask you, what do you think of my idea? Because I'll just explain the general theory of relativity to you, right? Because that's an unanswerable thing. My idea is a general theory and it's relative. It will never be answered. It can never be answered. It's a linguistic conundrum. It's not a scientific breakthrough. It's a Hegelian dialectic masterpiece, and I'm afraid it's ridiculous.
He reasoned that if you couldn't see the background, there'd be no way of knowing that the ball and the feathers were being accelerated towards the Earth. So he concluded they weren't.
Okay, let me try and highlight the obvious fraud in this experiment. How they have done it is they have taken this shot that we can see here now. They have dropped the bowling ball and the feathers literally just above, off camera, and they have run that footage back through. Once they have done that, they've captured a still image around about here. So once again, what they've done is they've just dropped the bowling ball and feathers just off shot. In editing software, they've captured this still image of the event, which is obviously just before the feathers are literally just touching and the bowling ball is obviously about to hit. and they've captured this still image and they've used it for the entirety of the experiment. Okay, so using that knowledge, let's just play the experiment back and see. First thing to observe here at the beginning of the shot is we have the bowling ball, and the wire coming out the top is slightly higher than the feather. Now, just before it leaves screen, we can see that it is no longer, it's off shot before the feather. Also, the feather is moving. You can see that air must be interacting with that feather, otherwise it would not move in that manner. But we move to the next shot because there's only 3 shots here. Now here's where they've taken the still image from their experiment, and farcically all that they've done is just, as I say, use that still image. Now we conveniently, how conveniently we cut before we see the impact. Then we can see the still image that they've used coming in. It's around about, obviously, well, just before then obviously that the still image was captured, around about here. Then they've resumed the original footage, and of course then we can see things acting very differently. For example, now we see movement in the feathers once again, which can only be due to the air. We also notice that the feathers propelled further up in the air than the bowling ball. So it's contrary to everything that we've just been explained by Professor Cox. They're propelled, some of those feathers are even reaching out of screen, whereas the bowling ball remains stuck. And in fact, if it wasn't for the fact that conveniently the British Brainwashing Corporation have cut this and ended the program, we would see the bowling ball using its own weight to descend more rapidly than the feathers.
Please, everybody, please, please wake up. Please realise that the vacuum, or a vacuum of space, is nothing like water. Nothing. Absolutely nothing like water. I've already played you the videos to show you what would happen. It would make you expand. You know, there's absolutely no way a spacesuit would stop that. You'd just expand in the spacesuit and pop. Ugh. It's just so disgusting that it's taken this long for everybody to start waking up and realising that everything that we're shown is lies. Lies, lies, lies. Now, I'm pretty sure I've sort of flipped the name up in this video towards the end. This is Jeran, of Jeranism. It just sounds so like him. But anyway, the one good thing is, he knows that space is fake. He knows. Please watch this video and realise that we're just living in someone else's game. Someone else's game. Anyway, those that haven't seen this, I really hope this is a wake up for you. Anyway, thanks for watching.
How exactly they've been fooling us. So here goes. So many of us have thought that they are doing spacewalks in a pool, mostly because we see bubbles and a scuba tank in one video. But there are so many other things about their practice sessions that bother me. Now, when watching this footage, I saw them close this big door into some sort of a black room, and I figured I'd look around for more. And I did find some interesting footage that looks like it was taken in some sort of a blackened out pool. Then I saw this one with what looks like a ball Earth showing behind this astronaut.
Houston, we have a problem.
And if you look, you'll see here's an editing room, or a TV room, but also they're faking space. So there are numerous ways it could be done, but one way would be with layers or PNG images that would be added to the videos. And here you got a little control center. But this next picture shows you something very interesting. If we zoom in here, you'll see that they are cutting out sections or layers or images, and there's absolutely zero reason to do this. If this was just a practice run in a pool, you would never need to do this kind of editing unless you're trying to edit live video. So let's see if that's even possible in today's technology. So we should know that anything that they can show us nowadays they've had for 20 or 30 years. So it shouldn't surprise us that they have the ability now to simply edit out live items from live video. So you'll see here they're just able to remove items that are sitting on the desk from the live video itself. probably not very hard, as it takes the background kind of that area. And you'll see there has that morphed. Hopefully you saw that. Yeah, you can see it there, that it kind of does come back in. It's not perfect. So we would be able to expect to see some errors, even with NASA if they were extremely careful. We might be able to see some errors. So see there's some stuff on the counter that's also been disappeared. And here again. And this is a good image that shows you the errors in it, because it's not perfect. And you can kind of mask it and blend it. But as you move around, occasionally you're going to get a little bit of ghosting or some remnants of whatever it is you're trying to delete. So this wouldn't be very difficult at all. You would need some people at the live editing stations. So is this something they could possibly be doing? And do we have any evidence that that in fact is happening? So in a moment we're going to watch an actual spacewalk. For now we are watching the training. And just watch a few things. You can see how these scuba divers assist the astronauts themselves. They kind of help them when they need help with a certain knob, or to carry their cord, or to move some cable, or to lift them up by their feet or their backs. You can see here he's kind of pushing up, giving him a little bit of assistance. And so again, you've got a ton of these guys, and if you listen to the Flat Earth Math conversation, my problem is if these guys have their life on the line in space, then you would have them practice without any scuba diver. This way, if they made an error that would have cost them their life, you can say, hey, that would have cost you your life. In this case, they're getting scuba help, and then when they go into the real world situation, they get absolutely no help, and their life's on the line. That makes no sense. You'll see a couple different poses that these guys are, that guy down there is laying down, almost as if it's something that he would have to do in a real spacewalk to kind of hide. You'll see here he's got some sort of pole that he's twisting and turning. You can see him there in the back. And just kind of watch the way that they move. They are definitely just kind of floating. They're not really swimming around. They just can kind of maintain their position. And in a second here he's going to spring up to help with one of these apparatuses. And you'll kind of get an idea of what it would look like if they're swinging. Here he comes. And you'll see he tries to grab this, and then this guy swings, it hits him in the face. And we'll watch that a little bit backwards, just so you can see how it looks as they swing in. Swing in, get hit in the face, knocked out, up, upside down, back. So just get an idea of what the scuba divers actually look like when they're in there assisting. And now what the story is that these guys go to space. And at that point, the scuba divers obviously remain on Earth. Interesting to note, this is the little picture that's on the side of the control room wall. And you'll see Vitruvian Man, and you'll see the scuba diver coming to give him a little drill tool. And you'll notice in the upper left here of this square the circle-like image, you'll see a rocket that is trying to leave, and it appears it's broken through some sort of a dome or firmament. I know that's crazy, because we go to space all the time, and so why would they depict a rocket that's breaking out? I don't know, can't even think of any reason for that at all. Except maybe the fact that they've never gone anywhere and desperately want to. Next we're going to look at the beginning of this spacewalk. When this spacewalk started, the screen that they show from Mission Control there in Houston or wherever they're at, look at the screen on the upper left and you'll notice that they are showing a scene which clearly shows 2 astronauts and 2 or 3 scuba divers, which really caught me off guard when I saw that. Usually not what you're expecting to see when you see the control room. So clearly you can see in the upper left that there's the divers and there is also the astronauts. You see the divers wearing the black, the astronauts in the white, contrasting colors. And now this is the actual EVA. It's a Russian EVA number 22 from June 5th, 2009. Alright, well hopefully you saw something interesting. If not, I'm going to point some things out to you here. One of the first things is that the structure itself looks like it moves in water. I'm also a little bit zoomed in so you notice that. We're going to be looking at a couple different things, but that one thing that you see flying around there straight in the middle right now, it looks like a black bag. If you watch that, I'm making the assertion that that is actually, you'll see it's hanging on to that ladder there. I guess we'll call that a ladder. And you'll see that the dark spot is holding on to the ladder, causing it to move. And in a second it will jump from the ladder, you see it, It's leaving that ladder. It has nothing to do with the person. It's jumping onto his back and moving him around. And if you just watch enough of this, you'll see that these are people. These are actual divers, that person there. Now, you're not going to see the entire diver. I do think there's a few times that we do see that. But it is live edited out. So it's meant to look like a bag attached to the astronaut. And you'll see that it moves too independent of itself. See there, it's lifting the person up. It's not as if the person is pulling the bag up. The bag's on a big string. There again, you'll see it's hanging on the ladder. And again, it jumps off the ladder onto the back. And then again, later we see it push the person up. You see here, it's jumping onto his back. What those are divers. And they are live edited out of the footage. It's not even very difficult to do. As we saw, you can do it as a chroma key type event. Or just have a nice delay where somebody's in there with a brush, and we'll see several examples of them covering up little areas. So anyway, just keep watching. We'll see coming around there on the upper part, you'll see what looks like somebody's on top of the astronaut's head. I'm kind of showing this in rewind so you can see that he'll actually come up, and you see him out there, and you can actually watch his feet. Watch the diver's feet. We're not watching the black backpack anymore. We're going to watch what's coming around the side there. See that bright light? Now that is his feet. He's kicking. That is a scuba diver. See the tank? And he kind of jumps up on this guy's back trying to help him, and then this guy throws him off. And you see him, he'll just get flung right back. That was me rewinding. You'll see a lot of that. So once you watch all this, you should start to get an idea of exactly what's going on. I think there's more than several instances where you can tell that these are not inanimate objects. You'll see that. That's a diver. You'll see he comes here to help the astronaut. Usually they grab their feet and then move them where they need to be. So I'm just rewinding and fast forwarding here, trying to get a better view. In a few minutes I'll also change the colors. We get a better view that way. And you'll see there he swings down, just like we saw him swing earlier. And we'll kind of rewind this up, and you'll see that he swings down. See now, right there, if you look at the opening in between the two astronauts, you'll see this person grab his feet. Watch here, and move his feet, grab his feet, and move them back towards the station. Okay. Now, if anybody else sees the way I do, it looks like these astronauts were having a fight with the scuba divers this day. Now, it sounds crazy, it sounds silly, but you'll notice there's several instances where it looks like they're not happy with each other. Now, look down below, you'll see the fins of the scuba diver there. Think of that white circle as being a helmet. Probably isn't, but you can see clearly that there is a flipper that is flipping there. We'll see lots of that. Another thing you might notice is there's just constant color changes and light changes, and the whole station actually looks like it's in water. If you've ever been in a pool late at night or seen a pool light, they have the same kind of effects on the station that you see in the lower left here. Again, we're just going to continue watching this. We see this scuba diver come around the back from behind there, and just like in the pool, they were always helping, always staying close, and that's what's going on here. We also will see that there's a significant amount of kicking that we can see with the fins. You can also watch that black bag down at the bottom and notice that it does not correspond to what's going on with his astronaut. So, you know, a couple times here you see him shoved down. Now, watch the bag versus the astronaut here. Just watch them both. We're talking about the bottom bag and the bottom astronaut. Now, the astronaut looks like he's going back up, but nothing. Now he's pushing the bag down. You see him kind of keeping that bag down. But you'll notice that it doesn't act in tandem. Now, you can probably see the fight I'm talking about. And you'll see that thing is hanging on to the ladder right there. And it kind of curled himself back up. And you can also see here the swinging of the person down below the astronaut there. So you can see he reaches up with I think he's got the stick there, grabs his feet, pulls his feet to the side. And if this doesn't convince you, there is another angle that we'll watch in a second, which I think is even more clear. And has better proofs. But if you have an open mind, and if you can contemplate the idea of how are they going about doing this, this is certainly, now in my opinion, without a doubt, what's going on. You see those bags disappear too much. You see them there, they like glare out. That's because they are getting chroma keyed. Just like there, you'll see that the bag is again stuck to that ladder. It did that on its own, not because the person put it there. So it's just staying there, even though it should move. And then here, it jumps back onto the astronaut. That is because it is a diver. It is not a backpack. Now we see the backpack because I'm assuming there's a rope from the astronaut to the diver, and the diver is connected to that rope, and the diver probably wears that backpack. And what that does is allows them to chroma key the rest of him and leave it looking like the astronaut carries a bag around with him. But the bag would have to coincide with what the astronaut's doing, number one. Number two, the bag can't have independent thoughts, and the bag does. If you look down below there, you'll see shadows changing. This is the morphing I'm talking about. They're trying to do a live edit. Wouldn't be very easy, but also not very hard, especially getting $50 million a day. They're in the system, and they are live edited out of any footage that we ever see. So it should be pretty weird that we found this one, because I can't imagine them ever letting anything out, especially if it's live edited. They just do it on a 5-second delay, and this way they don't make any messes. But by the end of this, you'll see that I believe there was a chroma key issue this day, because we see things disappearing in the second view and reappearing, which clearly means that they were ghosted or masked out. So now I've changed the color a little bit. It just gives you a better view. Same thing, got the brown backpack. You can watch it jump on the man here, and you can tell that that is a person. That's a diver. You can just tell by their movements. See, he jumps up there. He's just swimming there. Now, it looks to us like a backpack is just moving there, but the person is wearing the backpack and they're swimming. So I know a lot of people always ask, wasn't this just more people to bring into the secret? And I would agree that it looks like it is. Now you got to include some of these scuba divers, unless the astronauts themselves do it on the spacewalk. I'm not really sure. But one thing that we should point out that is interesting, that it's unfortunate, but also true, that people will do almost anything for money. You can see the flipper there, right straight ahead. You can see the flipper down, flipper. And people will do anything for money, and so ask yourself this question and be honest. Don't say it out loud, because you'll probably be less than honest. But ask yourself what you would do for $1 million. And really think about it. And pretty much the most gross thing I could think of, I'm thinking that most people would do. You know, if you're talking about eating something out of the trash, obviously, I think a lot of people would do that. If you're talking about even getting much grosser and doing something much more nefarious even, I think that when you look at it that way, and then you also examine the kind of people that you've come to meet in your lifetime, and then you start thinking, what would those people do? Watch Don Pettit, watch these guys, and you tell me if you think that's the cream of the crop, or if you think it's just somebody who is okay taking a couple million to play a game and basically keep people in deception, because that's what they've done. Again, here, if you watch that brown bag, you'll just see it completely moves opposite of its owner. It's not going away from it at a certain speed, and now here it comes back up. And this is what I'm trying to say, that these are divers. You can actually see their flippers on occasion. Here comes that one around the side, and this is a better color, so you can actually see the flipping. Can you see the kicking? Hope you can. It's there. And so we got them. We know what they're doing, and now we can exploit that. And like I said, my wife and I spent a majority of the afternoon going through other videos, and it's pretty freaking obvious. You'll see there that that brown bag is bringing that guy down, and so it's obvious. And from there, we just need to start investigating some of these old spacewalks, or even current ones, although we'd have to figure that they've gotten better. But by researching those, I think we're going to find a lot more and put together a pretty good case for treason. Okay, we're on to some black and white. You can just watch this again, and just to kind of recap what I'm saying, if you look at the left there, that certainly looks like the space station is in water. The light around it acts as in water that's in a pool. This ship is certainly not out in space. Anyone who believes that simply believes what they're told by mainstream science and thinks that they're smart and are not, because they can no longer use their own brain. They just, they're repeaters. You might as well be an encyclopedia, because you just are a bunch of words and numbers in a book, and that's it. You're nothing more, because you no longer are capable of independent thought, and that's one of the very marking or telling things that shows that we're human. Alright, so let's watch the brown bag in front here for a second, because I want to show you how it morphs out, and you should see it like flashing, because it's part of the chroma key activity, and it just was a bad chroma key day for them. Stuff is very flickery, so watch that brown backpack again. Right here, it's going to do something interesting.
I could go on and on and on, finding stuff to show you. This is all a lie and fake. And the one thing that is true is this is treason.